Okay, I would like to call this meeting of the Cumberland Council to order and recognize that we are gathering on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nations, and we are grateful for their care and stewardship of this land since time immemorial. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Councillor Barecki. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. All in favor? Thank you. And adoption of the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And we have a delegation of Coal Valley Estates Speed Control and Water Management. So you can all come up to the mic, or half of you, or you can take turns, or however you want to. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. One sec. Yeah, so my name's Scafty. I've lived in Cumberland since 2020, so not super long, but a few years flown by. We've had kids here and whatnot. The reason I'd like to speak with the council tonight is, as it said, regarding speed control in Coal Valley Estates. I mean, village in general. We just happen to live up there, so that's my focus. Regarding that, I mean, the speed that people drive on Kendall Avenue and the streets above it is way in excess of what the speed limit is. Part of the challenge, I think, is that the police say that above Egremont, it's unclear as to whether it's 30 or 50. When I've spoken to council previously at like one of the outdoor meetings, they said, well, it's 30, but there's no speed limit sign above Egremont. And because Egremont comes in as a 50 zone, they say that above that is 50. And so my understanding is that the intention is that it be 30, but the police can't even enforce it above Egremont. So whenever they perform speed control, because I do call them to ask them to come in intermittently, they can only do it below Egremont. Not that any down there is any less important, but kind of like limits their area of where they can do it. My wife has collected kind of like dozens of emails that have been sent to the council over the years, kind of outlining the issues that the residents see kind of living there. I want to say it was a year or so ago, a stop sign was implemented up at Solport, which I guess is an improvement. But there was actually a 2012 traffic calming study being conducted by the village. That was the last documentation of it, so I'm guessing, and since nothing's happened in 11 years, it kind of fizzled out. But the only thing that's been implemented is that stop sign, and in that village document it says that the least effective methods of speed control are stop signs. And so in the 11 years of it being a recognized issue, the least effective method is the only thing that's been implemented. We know multiple families that have left the community because of the speed on the road. One family was because of a near miss where their child just missed getting hit by a car. Squealing tires stopped just in front of the kid, and it really only is a matter of time before something really bad happens. I don't just speak on behalf of my family. It's everyone I know up there it's a concern for. And part of it is just, modern vehicles. They get going fast. They can accelerate so quickly, etc. It's a downhill, which makes it even easier to get going. It's a frustration on my end because the time difference to go 60 kilometers an hour versus 30, ignoring the fact that you have to stop at multiple stop signs, is less than 90 seconds difference. And so for 90 seconds in people's day, they're willing to risk someone's child, an animal, who knows what. A few months ago, there was an accident at Egremont. Someone just rolled into the stop sign, T-boned someone, turning left. An acquaintance of ours used to film everyone just running through the stop signs and send videos to the police of just, trucks, cars, whatever, just blowing through the stop sign with no regard. I personally don't know what the reluctance is from past councils to do. So I'm sure there's financial considerations. I'm not a traffic engineer. I don't know what implementations can be made. I know that other municipalities in the Lower Mainland, Northern BC, et cetera, they have implemented, speed humps, et cetera, in community or in residential areas where that's kind of recognized as the speed signs are not enough to limit, people slowing down. A lot of people, even the speed sign coming into town, when those lights light up flashing, same thing I think it's recently been implemented in the school zone there. People kind of hit on their brakes because a lot of it is they don't even realize, like 50 doesn't feel fast, 60 doesn't really feel fast, but it is. Some of the reasons that we've been told, either ourselves personally or other community members, is that there's reluctance on kind of the fire side of things, whether like the fire chief or someone in the firefighting community has kind of resisted it. I don't know. That's just what I've been told. And then I've heard that there's concerns regarding like snow removal and stuff for snow plows and whatnot. Again, other communities that have snow have been able to implement measures of some type to manage the speed. And so my hope is that the council can move forward. I know that in the emails that I received, it was kind of indicated that there was some kind of overall village traffic plan happening, which I do think that the overall village in general needs it. And I'm hopeful that part of that can be implemented in kind of that Kendall area, especially with that phase 10 and 11 kind of coming on. And I know that the second road is kind of intended to come down to Penrith or whatever, but realistically, I think for the people who live here, we know that that'll probably not be a super used road relative to everyone coming in from Courtenay, the highway, etc. The Kendall will still probably be the primary route of access, and that'll just increase it. Same thing with the daycare center coming in. That'll just increase traffic and whatnot up Rydell, etc. People fly down Rydell, which it is 50, but they go way in excess of that. And so my hope is that you guys can kind of ask people who know. I don't claim to have an answer about what to do, but I know that there are people who do this for a living that would be able to provide guidance as to how to effectively reduce the speed. And it's not just on Kendall, it's Solport, it's every road up there. So yeah, that's my hope for that. Regarding the water management plan, that's kind of just more of a broad, and not at all specific to Coal Valley Estates, just Cumberland in general, hoping that the council can kind of start to create maybe some sort of water management plan that can look at dealing with, as things kind of warm up and we see what's happening on the Sunshine Coast this summer and whatnot, where if we can come up with a plan before we get to that sort of stage in our lives in Cumberland, because when you're biking up there, you can just see the lake level in the summer just plummeting. You look at Comox Lake at how low it was this summer. I mean, it's crazy what's happening. And so I'm not, again, I'm not a water resource guy, but you just kind of look at it and think you don't want to be left in a position kind of like the Sunshine Coast, where it seemed that they were kind of caught off guard and unprepared. And I hope that we can kind of learn from them and kind of start to look at like, how could we manage if such a situation arises to, do we limit water use prior to getting to that sort of stage where they're limiting like industries from being, impacting their economy. Anyways, again, there are more knowledgeable people about me to come up with plans for that, but I hope that we kind of look at implementing that, because it's something that presumably we're going to probably be faced with in the future, and better to have a plan and not need it than to not have the plan and be kind of SOL, as it were. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for bringing those concerns forward. Are you willing to take questions from council?
Sure. I might not have answers, but...
Anybody? Go for it. Councillor Kettler.
Thanks so much for coming. I live on Rydell, so yeah, I'm well aware of the traffic problem. I think being on past council, we did kind of try to focus on the school area, so some of the changes that you've probably seen recently, the more signage and the sidewalk and stuff like that. And that took a long time, and I think that, we can focus more on other areas now that we've got some of those safety measures in around the school. Although I think there still could be a few more things added to Egremont there around the school. So one of the things, it's not just your area or our area, it's across the village, right? So we heard from you before at our village hall, and we've heard from other neighborhoods at the village halls as well. And so what we had talked about then was putting a 30-kilometer blanket on the town itself. And so that was one of the things that we had asked staff to investigate for us. And we haven't got a response back from staff on that yet, but that is something that we were asked them to investigate, instead of trying to put specific signage or speed bumps or whatever it is in every neighborhood, which we can't afford. The 30-kilometer zone seemed like a better way of approaching just safety across the village. So hopefully we'll get that report back soon and see the implications of that.
Yeah, and like I said, I recognize that it's a village issue. I would say that Kendall being kind of that artery into Cole Valley, I don't know, where my parents live in a residential community where same sort of thing, like kind of the artery into a residential neighborhood, that they put the speed bumps. And again, I'm not saying speed bumps are the answer for Kendall or whatever, but that's what was implemented there, just recognizing that like there are certain roads that are more traveled than others, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't expect speed humps on every road by any means. That would be, yeah, as you said, financially not possible.
And it could push the problem. So if we put them maybe on Kendall, then maybe Rydell would end up with most of the traffic or whatever, right? It could.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like I say, I don't claim to have the answers as to how to fix it. I'm just bringing it forward as an issue. I know, just because I know that there are people out there that do
Absolutely.
they do this for a living, et cetera. And
Yeah, and there is a safety risk, and I'm happy that you brought it forward.
so,
Can I just address the water
Sure.
portion? So there is concern, about water usage, and I think that we've had that discussion in council quite a bit. We got water meters. We were one of the first municipalities to get water meters, which actually halved our consumption. And so that was great when that happened. We had a moratorium on building before Cole Valley Estate, well, sort of partway through Cole Valley Estates. And so the developer had put in a well, which is now the Coal Creek well in Chinatown there. And so it gave us some more capacity. I think the other way that we've sort of forecast our supply demand is that we've asked Royston to come off of our water supply and go on to the regional district water. So that's likely to happen in the next few years. And so we'll have some of that water to use for other purposes. And then we have water licenses for 2 other reservoirs in our system. And so we do have access to more water as we grow as a community. So just to put your mind a little bit at ease, there are...
I won't say that even, I'm not like concerned in the sense that it's kind of like almost existential at this point, but it was just something that just looking at what was happening this summer and the summer before, it was just kind of like, oh, this is, as long as there is a plan, I'm not, again, I don't claim to.
We're definitely thinking about it.
Great.
Thanks.
Councillor Brecky, did you have?
I don't know where it sits with the emergency vehicles, but I don't think that should be a barrier to a blanket 30-kilometer-an-hour zone throughout the village. Somebody's going, you can have a license plate that says fire department. You're not going to get stopped, obviously. That's what they do in other communities to prevent people from getting to where they need to muster. And the same with the emergency vehicles. No one in their right mind is going to stop the fire truck from leaving and burning out. So everything else seems to, or ambulance or police, these things are... I personally am in full support of having a 30-kilometer blanket zone within the whole village, because even on side streets, a lot of the like the accessory dwelling units and that. Now you have more parking. Now you think that some of the side streets, not all of them, the parking lots, kids are kind of weaving in and out of cars. If you can do 50 between, on Maryport between First and Second during the time when school's in and that's just as much of a risk as anywhere
Absolutely.
else. So, I think that would go a long way to not just having it selective here and there. I don't think there are any downsides to it. And like you said, it doesn't add that much to your commute in any meaningful fashion.
No,
so,
exactly.
So that's all I wanted to say, and I fully support that.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Sullivan?
Yeah, thanks for coming in. Yeah, it's been a problem for quite a while. I think operationally there's some stuff that we can look at, and we've kind of looked at before. We've asked for police presence. I served the last term as well, and we're basically broken records on those guys to hang out down there. And the last time, one of the last times they went down there, I think they gave out 9 or 11 tickets, and it was
Great.
like 9 out of 11 or 9 out of 11 were residents. on Kendall.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean,
You know,
yeah, it's just sort of,
I know that when the construction was happening, the
Yeah, yeah.
perception was it was only construction, but like for people who live up there, it's
I know the council.
while they maybe contributed to the problem, they were by far not the
yeah,
only people causing it.
I think
Absolutely.
there's more to be done, but at the same time, I mean, I know we've spent a lot of time talking about this, and just short of trying to make people drive slower, we're kind of at a loss sometimes. We've talked about maybe neighborhood watch kind of stuff, or literally if, one day a week everybody takes a turn with like a VisiVet. I mean, like I said, we've talked about this like for a long, long time, and there's still more things we can do, but maybe even just more involvement from Kendall residents, I don't know, like a block program or something. And we're willing to, look at anything, I don't know, to help out. But really appreciate you coming in. Also for the water, we don't get our water from Comox Lake.
No, I know that.
Just to make sure, yeah. And then the new water reservoir and stuff, we're in pretty good shape. But I really
Great.
appreciate you coming in. Thanks.
And sorry, just to quickly comment on the 30-kilometer-an-hour thing. If that doesn't happen, could we at a minimum get a 30-kilometer-an-hour sign above
I think
Egremont?
yeah, the sign up there makes a lot of sense.
Screw it onto light poster. I don't know, whatever it's allowed.
Councillor Therian?
I guess just to thank you very much for the presentation. Just a quick question for Michelle or Rob, I guess. When can we expect to have the report back on the 30-kilometer-hour zone? How far away is that?
I believe it got rolled into the master transportation plan.
Yeah.
So there was a response from staff that suggested that we wait until after we do the master transportation plan before we implement the 30-kilometer zone, so that we're looking at the whole village.
Okay. And that's still 6 months away.
Yes, the engagement for that is going to happen in May, so yeah, 6 months out.
Anything else?
No, that answers most of my questions.
So I've campaigned in your neighborhood for 2 elections now, and every time I go up there, I hear the same concerns. It's been over a decade, and it's time for us to do something. So thank you so much for coming, and we will be asking staff to consider some more traffic calming, and hopefully we can get some ideas from your community through the consultation and the active travel, both the active travel consultation and the master transportation consultation that's coming. I think it's all in one consultation period, and we will try and find something to do.
Okay.
As soon as
Regarding,
possible.
sorry, it just popped in my head, sorry, regarding the fiscal side of things, I know that there are residents in the neighborhood that are willing to contribute towards this, whether it be, I'm aware of residents that have even offered services that would maybe aid
Help.
in this, and so just when looking at that, maybe you could reach out to the community to kind of defray some of the costs that might be associated with it, to make it more fiscally feasible. That's all.
Yeah,
Might
and
be
I
an option.
know you guys had access to, there was a traffic group or a neighborhood group or something. Are those people?
I
still
could
around?
ask around. I have a friend
Yeah.
that was friends with, I think, the people
Okay.
that you're speaking of, and
Yeah.
yeah,
if they have any suggestions that came out of that, but we can also look at that as well. Yeah, and as far as the water thing, we are doing some climate action planning, and so I'm sure it will be included in the scope of that. And I share your concerns. I was pretty worried over the last summer. Well, it wasn't even summer; it was all the way into December with no rain. So, and we are a rain-dependent water system. So, yeah, there are changes that are scary. So thank you so much for bringing that forward, and you'll hear back from us soon.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thanks. Okay, can I have a motion to receive that delegation?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Correspondence. So, Universal School Program.
I don't see that.
Oh,
No.
well, it's in my, oh, sorry, that's
The
the other. That's,
Guaxi,
yeah, it's Guaxidas.
yeah, Rainbow.
All right. It's
The first one's the Guquasawegalis. Yeah.
Gyoxawagaloose, I believe, is the pronunciation, Rainbow House. So, do we have questions or comments about that before we make the recommendation? So they,
Just one. Would this fall under our current policy? I assume since they're not charging any rent for this, it would be affordable housing, and would get a tax exemption if they did decide to come here?
Well, through the mayor, your current policy does not have affordable housing in it, so you do have to amend your financial plan
Okay,
bylaw
that is
to
part of, that amendment is forthcoming though, isn't it? It's part of what we discussed during the budget process?
That's right. I think during the budget process, council had decided that it's a bit more complicated than what was recommended, so I think you wanted a bit more discussion. So
Okay.
I suspect that you'll maybe talk about it tomorrow at your strategic planning. But, yeah, it would, I mean, it's not in the policy yet, so.
Yes,
it's
okay.
It could actually fall within it if you want.
anybody,
I just
Go
had a
ahead.
question. Just surrounding the tax exemption status, and you know, there's a few folks looking down this road, obviously, with the medical center and the churches and this particular project. Is there a cap at all on the number or percentage of tax exempt status properties within a village or within a municipality at all?
There's no cap.
No. Okay.
so whatever fits in the policy would then become,
Right. Okay.
I'm sorry, I was on medical leave for those meetings, so, but I am interested in reducing or giving them a tax exemption for that.
So did we already give you direction to look at the tax exemption for the medical building?
I believe the medical building, you directed staff to come back with a report
Yeah.
on how, because 2023 is already gone, there's a few more complicated, and that's coming up. That it will be coming back to you.
So we could look at both of these together, because the change in policy would
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
require both. Yeah.
Yeah, you could look at it at that point.
And once you offer this tax exemption policy, that is in perpetuity, is that correct? There's no, so for the medical, I'm just thinking
Yeah.
in a broader picture with the medical center there, it's good to get it off the ground, you know, the think, and I gotta realize I'm diverting, but getting it off the ground is one thing, but to offer that building up in perpetuity, if somehow it becomes incredibly profitable, or, you know, it seems like we're really eating into a bit of the tax base here, and we have to, just as a general rule, just start thinking about the, like, kind of the financial implications of that sort of thing as well, so. And that's more geared towards the medical facility.
I can just say a little bit more about that through the mayor. The policy stays until you, amend your financial plan and take it out. So that doesn't, but it's the permissive, that's just the starting point. You have to have that policy, and then the permissive tax exemption bylaw then comes back to you in the fall, and that's what the time frame is really attached to. You would say, if you wanted to do that, you could say, we'll give this permissive tax exception for 5 years or
Okay.
whatever.
So there is
You
that
could-
option. It's not attached
Yeah.
to the parcel itself. That's what I wanted
That's
to know. Okay.
correct. And, so.
All right. Thank you.
It
Okay.
comes back to us each year, currently, the
Currently.
permissive tax exemption, so
Yes.
we
Yeah.
could make changes to it. Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
Yes.
Okay. Someone ready to move the recommendation?
I will move the recommendation that council direct a letter to staff to write a letter to Dawn Action Homeless Society regarding the Wagalis. Do I got it closer?
It's close.
Yep, thank you.
Practicing.
And my apologies if I scrambled that a bit. I will work on it. The Rainbow House, outlining the village's property tax exemption policy, providing information on the village's community grant program, and offering support for applications for senior government funding.
Seconder?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And Guaxidas. So we heard from Carver and Grant about the totems. The recommendation is to ask staff to come back with a report. But I think probably they would like to hear what we're thinking about the totems and where they might go temporarily before we get 2 more totems and move those other totems back, hopefully, when the housing is built in the imminent future.
So unfortunately, I missed that meeting.
Oh, that's right.
But
Basically, the 2 poles that are virtually ready, we didn't want to see them stored somewhere that was, we just want to see them installed. And so the suggestion from Dawn to Dawn and Carver was to erect them in a temporary location and then apply for more funding for 2 more poles. And then, so erect the 2 poles for Guaxidas now, and put them up. And then when we get the other 2 poles and the housing is built, or whatever comes first, those poles move back to the housing location, and the new poles go in the temporary location.
okay.
So, thoughts on that?
As I understood it, he was applying for the grants to fund the poles,
Yes.
and we're on the hook for the
Installation.
installations.
Yes. Yes. Which,
And was an alternate location talked about last time?
no.
Talked about Peace Park.
Peace
but
Park
The
was-
fact that, the future is unwritten for Peace Park might not be the best spot, but that's the only one we talked about.
Just in light of our recent celebrations coming up for the 125 years, if you're going to move them potentially anyway, what would be the harm in just placing it at the Peace Park and getting it just done? Because I really can't conceptualize a better location at this point in time, and it's very prominent. I know there's other pieces of honoring how they're placed and all of that have to be put in there, but just for us to come to a decision and get the ball rolling as soon as we can, I think would be good. Rather than punting this one down the road, we can always move a chunk of concrete and some bracing in the future too.
Can we ask Public Works about, because that is supposed to be a roundabout, so technically it would still have a center to it that could
Public
hold
service.
those totems.
Yeah, I think it's good to talk about ideas. It would be really great if council could, or if staff could come back with a
Yeah.
report.
Okay.
But it's good to hear what you have to say. It's
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, for my mind, Peace Park is a great location. The museum would be another possible location. Those
They
strike
are
me
like
as-
welcome totems, right?
They
So
are.
Yeah.
it'd be nice if they were sort of somewhere in a more
entrancey
Yeah,
location.
yeah.
Yeah,
Which
Yeah.
is Peace Park.
which is the Peace
Yeah.
Park. Yeah.
Even the name, there's no downsides.
No.
Right? Yeah.
Or possibly the fire hall?
Yeah, maybe on the grounds there. Yeah, I don't know whether that's another, I mean, it's an entrance. It's
It's
an
right at the
entrance
entrance
way.
to town as well.
Yeah. I really like the idea of the Peace Park as well. And I think we can deal with the totems when the roundabout happens. So, yeah. Somebody want to
I'll
move the
move that
recommendation?
council refer the request from Dawn to Dawn Action on Homelessness Society regarding the temporary location for Guaxidas welcome poles to staff to provide a report to council on costs and process to raise the Guaxidas welcome poles at a temporary location.
Seconder? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, council reports. Who wants to start?
I
But-
I
oh, sorry.
can go, yeah.
Go for it.
Go ahead, Councillor Sullivan.
Okay, had the hospital board last month. We had a tax requisition report to provide analysis of taxation versus tipping to the board. They were interested in the equality of those two things. And the taxation requisition was originally implemented as a response to the significant debt requirement in the region. They needed to build the landfill out, and so they raised the requisition. During COVID-19, the requisition was reduced from 6 to 5 million to make it easier on the region. But now the proposed financial plan for 2023 to 2027 includes a $5 tipping fee increase per ton and an increase back to $6 million implemented over the next couple years in a phased approach to get back up to the $6 million. And the upcoming solid waste management plan will set new goals and objective. And yeah, like I said, the board is looking for some equity between the requisitions and the user fees. So these are some of the these will reflect some of those changes. There was a report on the 2022 education summary. They're actually involved in quite a lot of outreach and education. It's pretty impressive. So they had a curricular education school for programs, which had 5 main workshops to choose from that were age appropriate from K to 2 and all the way up to different ages. There was a holiday specific presentation, and these are all offered in person or by video, where in person is not possible for remote communities. There were no tours during COVID-19 in person, but landfill tours by video are online, and diversion education with a lot of positive feedback from teachers was received over the year. Community outreach through in-person events and virtual workshops were undertaken. Diversion pilot projects in remote communities. The regional organics education with the new organics compost program. They spent, I don't know if you've seen it on Facebook, but they've done a lot this year for social media engagement. Some rural community composting in partnership with Ocean Legacy Foundation. This service opened up at the landfill June 8th, 2022. Super cool. It's the first year, in its first year, Comox Strathcona Waste Management arranged for the collection and transportation of 60 cubic yards of beach debris from Quadra and Denman Island alone. And to date, they have collected over 80 cubic yards, and that has been recycled through the Ocean Legacy program, which is super cool. And people can take any ocean debris to the landfill, and there's a spot there for them to drop it off, and it's not paid for by taxes. So that's great. Yeah, they had a lot of community cleanups. They had a repair cafe on October 15th, they had a repair cafe where 70 items came in and 50 were repaired, so that was pretty cool. So they're going to look into having some more of those. And on April 29th, coming up, there is a repair cafe at the Cumberland Community School. So anybody who wants to get their stuff fixed can take it into there to see if that can happen or not. So April 29th at the community school in Cumberland. That's it.
Awesome, thank you. I think that's one of our residents doing that, a lot of that education and the
absolutely.
repair shop. Councillor Therrien, do you want to go next?
Sure. I attended the Local Government Leadership Academy, along with Councillor Barecki and Councillor Sullivan and Mayor Brown. And it was great. Learned a ton. Some of the highlights were the keynote address by Andrea Reimer, who was quite inspirational in her green campaign in Vancouver. So that was definitely one of the highlights of the conference. Learned a lot about just how council works. As a new councillor, it was quite educational. So Leonard Krog's discussion on how decisions are made, and Gordon McIntosh's presentation on the roles of council and staff, and more staff, was also very good as well. Yeah. Other than that, I did attend I managed to find time to do a Zoom session with the Climate Caucus. I try and do those time permitting. They don't always fit my schedule very well. And found an interesting, something called the Cool Kit, done by UBC as a outreach program for gathering community information. So something we can think about as we're heading into our OCP process.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I clicked on the link. Councillor Barecki?
My apologies for not getting my report in paper. However, I'll just give the verbal. Also attended the LGMA conference. I won't get into it too much, other than I really enjoyed many of the presentations, especially some of the illuminating ones on how councils in the past haven't worked in other communities and what you can do to avoid those sorts of things without any naming any of those communities. It was very illuminating. Also met with the Cumberland Social Committee here, or just gave them an update. We were trying to, for the Soapbox Derby in particular, we're trying to get, we scratched getting getting trophies, and we're just going to get medals. I have approached some sponsors. Unfortunately, Dodge and Jeep will not do it because they are fully committed. However, Max Udendag and the pop-up, what's the small market? It's just that they're coming right beside the True Green there. They're thinking of kicking in for this to the tune of about $500. So that will be exciting. Still getting specs on what the standard soapbox is, because I think it was pretty open last year from what I recall. There was some, so if you're out there listening, the larger wheels go faster, but they make you highly unstable. So I know that's an important
Safety
piece
first.
of counsel.
Safety first, people.
So there was that. We also, I also attended the 125th the celebration committee. So I won't steal your thunder, Mayor Brown, but we've got some exciting organizers, and I'm really looking forward to how this pans out. So. And then we had the Village Town Hall, and some of the main themes that I heard from people both before and after, and through correspondence, was that the OCP review is really important. There's concern that we need to fund this properly, so that was really seemed to be a key component of what people wanted at the town hall. Other things were looking at full cycle development costs, and that cost analysis, you can do it online. It's called CLIck, and it's a tool that looks at life cycle costs of infrastructure over 100 years and things like that. Food security and poverty, affordable housing, protection of wetlands and water. There's some concerns about the buffer zone around Phase 9 there in the ravine just above Camp Road. So some of the residents want to make sure that council's on top of that to protect the wetlands and the water sources, not just use it as a dump for stormwater management. There was discussion of the 30-kilometer-an-hour zone through the village, as well as more stop signs by the BMX track. And moratorium on development till the OCP review is in was suggested to us. There was a delegation on menstrual equity on products in public spaces, which I feel is long overdue. Having a daughter, I do not want to run home in the future because of something. Anyway, as well as climate change action and some other land issues that I feel aren't appropriate out of camera. So.
Thank you. Councillor Kettler.
Thanks, Mayor. So there's probably quite a few things that are of interest to council from the regional district. So on February 14th, we had a Recreation Commission, and it had been put forward that we do another business case on the Agriplex. But that was voted down, and the motion was that no further action should be taken at this time and that it not be brought back.
Great.
We had multiple strategic planning sessions for the Sports Commission, Recreation Commission, sorry, and we didn't really come to consensus. So the main things that we were talking about are the aquatic strategy, the arenas, and the fields, and possibly putting in a new turf somewhere. So we didn't come to consensus on where to put the turf. We didn't come to consensus on what to do about the arenas or the pools. So our consultant is going to be coming back to us and trying to steer us, I guess, in a direction and toward a decision point, I guess, is what will happen. So stay tuned for that. So we did have an interesting board meeting after the Rec Commission was the regular board on February 14th. So the nonprofits had asked us to look at not charging them or exempting them from development cost charges. And so I guess for the city of Courtenay, they had a fund that they could access where they had basically given them the equivalent amount for the Wachai project to, instead of actually changing the DCC bylaw and exempting them, they just, out of their housing fund, gave them the equivalent of the DCCs for that project. And so I think that they were looking for the same from the regional district. But the request it didn't come through the coalition, it came through Wachai itself. And so part of the trouble with that is that it has to go to the specific commissions that you're requesting the development cost charges from, which would be the Sewer Commission and the Water Commission. So those requests did go there, and we'll see what those commissions think about that. We did increase the homelessness support service requisition to its maximum that day in the hopes of helping with the situation around the development cost charges. And so on page 2 of the report, the annual tax requisition in 2023 of $176,000 went up from the $245,000 to $421,000. So there will be those additional funds for the coalition to allocate for this year. So before, not like discounting those funds, the coalition was receiving $70,000 toward the project here in Cumberland. So that's the Guaxidas. And $75,000 toward the Wachai Friendship Center on McPhee. $30,000 toward Habitat for Humanity on Piercy, and $75,000 for the Rainbow House. So it kind of sounded like through the coalition, the funds would go back and sort of proportionally bump up all those same projects. So I'm not sure that that's what's happened, but That's the feeling that we got from that. And then $30,000 toward a coordinator position for the coalition, and $10,000 to be used for honoraria for the peers that they have come in and do consulting with them. So that was some important discussion there. And then on the 28th, we just were basically passing number of service budgets, and that included an extra $40,000 for the replacement of the HVAC system at the visitor center. So, just so you know about that. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you. I didn't catch the amount of increase to the homelessness and of, like, what are they looking to spread around?
The it's 165,000, I believe.
Okay, over several projects.
Yeah, to be dispersed, I think, proportionally to each of the. But I'm not sure on that, so
Right.
we'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
Because it just went back to the coalition to be decided there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
They had asked, sorry, I missed that part. The coalition had asked in a letter that those funds not be used for development cost charges.
Oh, okay.
So, so the board decided, okay, just send it back because it is a consensus-based group, and so they should be able to figure out amongst themselves how to use it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yep, just a quick question. When you didn't reach consensus on the pool and rink issues, was it split between doing nothing, or was it the split between what type of rink they should be? And same for the pool. Was it? I'm just curious if it was how it's.
Or is it leaning?
I think with the rink, they're leaning toward a new large rink, right?
Okay.
A new full-sized
Yep.
rink. But then there were some that said, well, we could, it's really hard with the rink because basically they sit empty most of the day.
Yep.
And they're only busy during those peak hours and everybody wants them at the same time. So it's kind of hard to, like, it's $16 million to build a new rink.
Yep.
The full-size rink. And so to build it just for those peak hours, for those groups that want it at that specific time is, I don't know. To me, I struggle with it. We could build a smaller rink and sort of take some of the pressure off, but it would be more like those community groups that don't need, obviously, a full-size rink could use a smaller rink and maybe take some of that pressure off. But staff are like, it probably won't really make that much of a difference. It's really the full-size rink that those primetime groups are looking for. So I don't really know how to answer your question, whether it was,
Okay.
because the conversation was kind of all over the place,
Yeah.
but I think the board was leaning toward a full-size rink. But, well, that remains to be seen. The pool, I think we were leaning toward adding on a 25-meter length to the already existing pool so that we have a 50-meter length, and you can do a whole range of other things with that and make it more usable. The pool in the sports center is underutilized. So there was talk about basically covering over that and having possibly like indoor tennis, pickleball, whatever. You could put a climbing gym. Like, there's a lot of things that you could do with that space and probably have a lot better utilization out of it. So I think the options are just so many and the costs are so great that it really was a hard conversation that we just couldn't find the solution in 2 days worth of
Yeah.
discussing.
How about the outdoor pool in Courtney? Is that still up for?
That was part of the
Yep.
aquatic study. It was included. There was a proposal to put an outdoor pool. One of the options was to put an outdoor pool at the current aquatic center. But that wasn't really well received. I don't think
Yeah, it's not really
the directors weren't too, stoked on having a pool on the corner of Lurick.
no, it's not exactly a nice outdoor location.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. Again, it's still up in the air, and Courtney has to make their own decision about what to do with the outdoor pool. It's just kind of, we would try and help them with an overall strategy, but they are the ones who have to make the decision on the pool, on the memorial pool, the outdoor pool itself. Yeah.
Is there is opportunity for cost sharing there with that sort of thing?
Yeah,
I mean, that
I would
seems,
say so.
given that most of the infrastructure is in place aside from, the
Yeah.
pool itself, which
Yeah.
could be refurbished, that seems like a good option, so.
Yeah. So sorry, but no answers there still. Have to wait
Thank
and
you.
see. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. I imagine that was a challenging conversation, to say the least. That's so much money. So what shall I highlight? So I did go to Ottawa for the Canadian Federation of Canadian Municipalities Sustainable Communities Conference, February 8th to 10th. It was really great. Learned a lot, connected with a lot of people who give away money. That was great. And also had the opportunity to see our wastewater project highlighted in the Green Municipal Fund collection of amazing projects. So that was pretty cool. Ran into Paul Nash while I was there. That was pretty nice.
Good highlight.
Definite highlight, especially when you're not expecting him and he like taps you on the shoulder. Yep, that was good. LGLA was also good. Coldest night of the year. A few of us walked together in the snow, which was cold and appropriate. We had our first regional Parks and Trails Committee meeting and elected Daniel Arbor as chair and Wendy Morin as vice chair. And I also went to a very interesting and educational workshop by CCSS on queer inclusive language and learned a whole bunch about all the labels and appropriate way to address people. And it was super educational, and hopefully they'll do some more of that. And that's about it. So could I have, unless anybody's got questions for me, we could have a motion to receive those monthly reports.
Move receipt.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And the financial plan bylaw. Welcome, Annie.
So the purpose of this report is to present the 2023-2027 financial plan bylaw for consideration of second and third reading. Council gave first reading of the proposed plan on February 27th, and there's been no further public comments received since the Village Hall financial plan presentation. Council may still make changes to the financial plan today. Council would have to provide changes to the bylaw in a resolution from the bylaw presented, give second reading of the financial plan bylaws as amended, then read the change bylaw a third time. And the change bylaw would then come back to Council at the March 27th, 2023 meeting for adoption. The financial plan bylaw policy outline how Council wants to use the various funding sources that fund the budgeted expenditure, the distribution of property taxes among the property classes, and the use of permissive tax exemption. The distribution of the property taxes among the property classes and the permissive tax exemptions can be reviewed again during the second reading of the financial plan bylaw, and Council can also amend the financial plan policy prior to the readings of the tax rates bylaw. Staff is recommending that Council give second and third reading to the 2023-2027 financial plan bylaw. And the financial plan bylaw is currently scheduled to come back to Council on March 27 for final adoption. The financial plan and tax rate bylaws must be adopted every year by May 15th to meet the statutory deadline. Do you have any questions?
Questions?
Comment.
Yes. Go ahead, Councillor.
I just wanted to say that, you know, for your guys' first year, that you really did a great job with the financial plan, and to staff, kudos to staff to, you know, for getting through the financial plan without a chief financial officer. And we're so glad that Annie is here. But yeah, I'm just really, really proud of the team that they did so well with this. Thanks.
Well said. Thank you. Anything else? All right, can I have a motion?
That council give second and third readings of the 2023 to 2027 financial plan bylaw number 1186, 2023.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, no new business, notice motions and announcements. Accessibility and Inclusion Select Committee meets here March 20th at 3 p.m. And the Heritage Committee meets here March 16th at 4 p.m. Those are open meetings. The public is welcome. And question period.
Still no music.
So we're still waiting for a member of the community to come forward with a council song that we sing during this time, or maybe we play it if you want to sing it instead.
Cooper, no more Mr. Nice Guy.
That's a suggestion we can take forward. So if anyone out there is, I know there are songwriters out there.
Corwin.
So if you wanna, that would be fun. Anything, Rachel? Nothing. All right. Would someone like to move us into closed?
I'll move the council close the meeting to the public pursuant to Section 90 of the Community Charter to consider law enforcement if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the conduct of an investigation under or enforcement of an enactment. The receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and a matter that under another enactment is such that the public must be excluded from the meeting.
Thank you.
Was I supposed to read?
Second?
Oh,
Oh, there's more.
Oh.
all right. I forgot about that one. And to close the meeting to consider the acquisition of land or improvements if the council considers that disclosure could be reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the municipality, and the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and a provincial government.
Excellent. Thank you. Seconder?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And a motion to adjourn, please.
Make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Thank